So I've thought about making a YouTube channel for a while. Name's John Starr. My channel is gonna be called PlayStation Now or PlayStation Nintendo Win. First time, like I said, doing like a YouTube video basically. Uh, so for me, I wanted to do kind of an introduction video before I did any sort of more content videos. So this video is just kind of an introduction of kind of what I'm gonna do going forward and just kind of about me. So and trying to get a little more comfortable in front of the camera. So I grew up more of a Nintendo fan than a PlayStation fan. Got into PlayStation more later on, more with PlayStation 3 and then PlayStation 4. Grew up more with Super Nintendo and GameCube. I didn't have an N64, so I went from Super Nintendo to GameCube for the first couple consoles, as well as having like a handheld Game Boy. So going from a Super Nintendo to a GameCube, the graphical jump was huge. Skipping a generation like that. And I also did at one point have a Sega Genesis um, back in the day, but haven't had it now for a while for complicated reasons. But and never really had like a Dreamcast or anything. But yeah, I grew up with like Donkey Kong on Super Nintendo and Legend of Zelda. That's kind of what got me into gaming. I have played the Atari, even though it's before my time, uh, because my stepdad has an Atari. So probably one of the first games I actually played was Pawn. But even with that said, like the first console I actually had myself was Super Nintendo, and like I said, Donkey Kong 1 through 3 was big, especially Donkey Kong 2, is I think it's easily the best of the three. And I actually never owned the first one or the third one, although now I do have a Super NES Mini and have it on there. And I did play 1 and 3 before at friends' houses or renting or whatever. But 2 was the one I had. Legend of Zelda, um, Link to the Past was big for me on Super Nintendo. One of the first Zelda games I played, uh, and still up there for me. It's about my fourth favorite Zelda game overall, still to this day. Um, and then the other game that was big for me on Super Nintendo was Super Mario World. That was one of the first games, as well as like kind of that Donkey Kong and Zelda was what got me into gaming. And then, like I said later on, I got a GameCube, and then with PlayStation, like I said, I got into it kind of late. PlayStation 3 was the first console I had for the Sony side. Even though PlayStation 2 was hugely popular, like I said, I had a GameCube during that generation, and played Zelda games as well on that. But also games like Tony Hawk were big for me. I love Tony Hawk games. Been dying for a new good one, and what I mean by that is basically a Tony Hawk game that plays like the old ones, but has today's graphics. It's the Tony Hawk games went downhill a lot after I'd say Wasteland. Tony Hawk 3 was my first Tony Hawk game I had on the GameCube. I played 1 and 2, but not a lot. The remaster I am looking forward to though, because it sounds like they're adding some of the features such as the revert and manual from Tony Hawk 3, and maybe some other stuff that were added in Tony Hawk 4 or whatever. So that's good because Tony Hawk 1 and 2 are very limited. But yeah, anyway, PlayStation I got more into with 3, and what really got me into that was just at the time was, I was looking for opportunity for a new console after GameCube, and the fact that PlayStation 3 was the first console to do HD, which is a big jump. I got a HD TV not too long after I got PlayStation 3, and I got PlayStation 3, I believe, a couple years, maybe a year after it came out. And I don't remember, what the first games were per se that I got, but the big thing for PlayStation 3 and why I think it's still my favorite console is I got into Ratchet and Clank big time during that gen, and love Ratchet and Clank. It's my favorite Sony franchise now, even though I got into it late. First one I played was Crack in Time. After I played that, after I played Crack in Time, I instantly wanted to play some of the other ones because of how much I liked it. So I ended up buying the PlayStation 3 collection, HD collection that had the first 3 Ratchet and Clank games from the PlayStation 2 in HD. I didn't actually necessarily play those right away. I have a hard time with backlog of video games too. I'm always having a backlog. The only way I won't have some sort of backlog is if I ever win the lottery or something and can retire, which of course is not likely. But yeah, Ratchet and Clank got me, I'd say, to love that PlayStation 3 so much. I also liked other games, but that was really the big one for me. Mod Nation Racers is one game I'd really like to see again. Don't think that's going to happen, though. Uh, and then going forward to PlayStation 4, like, because of the fact that I like PlayStation 3, I got PlayStation 4. Got that at launch. I have a hard time not getting systems at launch, in part because I'm always just kind of hyped with the new tech now, being older. Not sure if I'm going to get PlayStation 5 on day one. I'd say it's probably likely, but I need to see some of the launch games that are going to come with that first before I make that sort of decision going forward. But yeah, PlayStation 4, games like Spider-Man, I've always loved Spider-Man. Spider-Man and Batman are like the two superheroes I like a lot. And I love the Batman Arkham games. The Spider-Man plays similar to it, but different. And the fact that it's made by Insomniac, like I said, I'm a big Ratchet and Clank fan. I played Spyro late, actually, because of the fact that I never had a PlayStation 1 or 2. I got the Spyro collection for PlayStation 4 a while back. I played those basically at the beginning of last year. Liked them a lot. Not as much as Ratchet and Clank or Spider-Man, but still fun games. And then, so yeah, Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank, and Spyro, all games I like from Insomniac. So I'm a big Insomniac fan. I'd like to play Sunset Overdrive, but I'm not really big into Xbox. Just personally don't care for their games. They do a good job with backwards compatibility, but that's about all I can really say positive when it comes to Xbox. But yeah, Insomniac I'm a big fan of. And then, also games on PlayStation 4 that I love is Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm actually doing a second playthrough right now on the DLC. I beat the story for a second time. It had been a while since I beat the story the first time, as well as the DLC. I put about 100 hours, maybe just slightly over. I know the other day when I looked, I was like 98 hours or something. I put a little bit more since then, so I'm right at around 100 hours, slightly over now. And I still have a lot of stuff I haven't done. I'm a person who, the first time I play a game, I tend to do zero side missions and just play the story. I kind of like doing that because I feel like it kind of gives you a reason to play a game a second time when you haven't fully experienced everything, with the side stuff or with side missions or collectibles. And I also feel like it can kind of make a game somewhat harder because you're less leveled up when you do less side stuff. You don't get as much XP, so it kind of makes the game somewhat more challenging in a sense too. But yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn, big, love that game. Really can't wait for the second one. Hoping it's a launch title. Uh, and then games like The Last Guardian, loved. One of the very few games that have actually made me cry like a baby. Real, just very emotional story in that game and very different. And that's a game I'd like to see get a patch on PlayStation 5 to run smoother because it's a good game, but the camera's annoying. You can't really do much about that, obviously. But it does also have a lot of frame drops, and just giving the game a patch where it can run more smooth would be a big step up, big improvement, sort of thing. And then so yeah, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, Last Guardian, Ratchet and Clank again, big fan of. So obviously I like that a lot. And then I do have some other games such as Drive Club, which I think is a good game. I'm not usually big into racing games, but I like that one. And I know it got a lot of flack at first or whatever, but still like it. So yeah, it's kind of my history with PlayStation. Like I said, with Nintendo, Super Nintendo, GameCube, I have a Switch, a Wii U even. Big Zelda fan. I'd say Zelda's my favorite video game franchise of all time. Ratchet and Clank's number two. So like I said, I like both Sony and Nintendo. I like Nintendo because of the fact that they're different. They don't follow necessarily what Microsoft and Sony's doing per se. I just kind of like that they're different and unique. Even though I don't necessarily always like everything they do. Like I'm not a big Wii U fan. I never really cared for the whole idea of motion controls, honestly. And both, all the last several systems from Nintendo have been underpowered, and the Wii, I always say, in terms of power and capabilities, I feel like it was basically a GameCube but with motion controls. Like there wasn't anything on the Wii that I'd say like, oh man, that couldn't be played on the GameCube in terms of like the way it looked or its size or scope or whatever. And then the Wii U, I actually feel like it's kind of underrated because I actually think the Wii U has better games than the Wii, but yet it sold away worse. Um, but I definitely think the Switch is Nintendo's best console since the GameCube. Switch is, I think, it's been a very good console and has a lot of games for only being just over 3 years old now. Although I feel like it is in kind of a drought now. I haven't really had anything I've cared about buying much since like last year. But systems do go through droughts. Hoping Breath of the Wild 2 will come out this year. Not so sure if that will happen though, especially with the virus going on and everything. But basically, this channel I was going to do Nintendo and PlayStation news, some streaming. Not sure exactly when I'll stream, how much I'll stream. Probably stream more with PlayStation just because of the fact that the app or whatever, or the share button or whatever that it has makes it pretty easy to simply stream stuff compared to Nintendo where they don't have they have the where you can take pictures and 30-second clips or whatever of gameplay, but they don't have where you can necessarily stream, so it's not as easy. And I don't have special like video equipment to record and stuff. Not sure if I'll look at that kind of thing. So yeah, I might do more with PlayStation. Might do more streaming, and Nintendo some news, but I'm gonna try to do streaming and news on both. I'm also a big sports fan. I might at some point do some videos on sports if we actually get sports back at some point with the virus situation going on. Been missing the NBA a lot. NFL I enjoy too. Of course, it's off season on that anyway, so that hasn't really been affected too much yet. But the whole idea of not having fans at games, sucks. But because even on TV, the crowd is really makes sports entertaining, especially in the playoffs when the crowd's louder and stuff. But yeah, at this point, even though it would kind of suck to not have a crowd and the atmosphere that comes with it, I'd still take it over not having sports. I've been going crazy. I typically in the summertime, because I don't really watch much baseball, that's kind of usually my quiet time. It's usually about 13 weeks or so between NBA Finals inning and NFL regular season inning. And right now we've been on lockdown in some capacity with stores and stuff, but also with sports for 12 weeks, just over 12 weeks now. That's like Friday or so will be 13 weeks. So it really feels like football should be starting next week or something, but yet obviously football's not even close, and it sounds like basketball, if it even does start up, might not be till the end of July, and I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. Because at that point, if they do start at the end of July, you're going to be talking about it's going to have been almost 5 months. It'll be like 4 months and like 3 weeks or something since things went on lockdown. As the lockdown basically happened early-ish part of March. It was like March 10th or something. And so 5 months is a lot of time to have to make up. And, they want to also, with basketball, not go past early September or Labor Day weekend. But if you start up about 5 months late and you were to go about things the same with where they were and everything, you would literally have to play till about November 1st to get things done, which is like 2 months later than they want. That's a lot of a difference, for different ideas about going straight to playoffs. But I don't really know how good of an idea that is, because I feel like if you go straight to playoffs, you're going to have a lot of injuries because of the fact that guys are not going to have the normal endurance and stamina and everything. And it's going to kind of be like preseason almost, where guys are going to need to get back in shape. And if you go straight to playoffs, you don't really allow that. If you were to finish the regular season, that would give, while the games are still important, obviously not as big as the playoffs, and it would give guys a little more opportunity to get back in shape. If you go straight to the playoffs, I feel like either one or two things or both is going to happen. You're either going to have a ton of guys getting injuries because of not being in shape, and even more so because in the playoffs every game is more important, which means guys usually play more minutes. And I have a hard time seeing starters being able to play like 40 minutes just like that when you've been on hiatus for 5 months and expected to play huge minutes like that. I just feel like you're going to have a lot of guys with injuries, and hopefully not a lot of big injuries, torn ACLs, Achilles, stuff like that. That would be horrible. Or the other thing I think you could see is guys aren't going to have stamina, which as a result won't be able to play big minutes. And instead of trying to push guys to play big minutes, you're going to end up having starters only playing like half the game, 24 minutes or so. And basically the bench is going to have to play a lot more. And, while I want sports back, obviously, I don't know if you really want to have a playoffs where you almost seeing kind of like a battle of benches per se, where not star players are not playing as much, and you're basically having to play your bench more. I guess it makes depth more important, which kind of makes things interesting. But I don't know if you want a playoffs where your bench is having to basically play way more than you would ever see typically a bench play in terms of minutes, type of thing. So I don't know how it's gonna work. But yeah, with this channel going forward, I was just gonna try to, like I said, do PlayStation news, Nintendo news slash streams, and some sports updates and stuff if the seasons ever get back to going. I don't know if I really want to cover with sports right now. If I really want to cover, talk about when things may start up or whatever, because I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm kind of annoyed even with that, because there's been so much different dates thrown around and everything that it seems like it keeps changing as well as it keeps getting later, and you can't just keep pushing it back and back, because at some point you got to play, because the following season, what are you going to do? You can't just keep going back and back and basically be playing when you would normally be playing the next season type of thing. You got to have some sort of normal off season for free agency and training camps and drafts and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to do too much news about when they might start up. I just want official news. If they do like some sort of official news in terms of when they start up and how many teams are going to be involved and the playoff format and all that stuff, maybe I'll do it. I know NHL has done update now, but in terms of how many teams they're going to have and that they're going to start in July. But even then, I haven't heard. I haven't looked at all the details, but I do like hockey, but I'm more just Sharks on that. I don't watch a lot besides the Sharks. Baseball, pretty much if the Giants make the playoffs, I'll watch the playoffs. That's about it. So it's more basketball, football for me. But NHL, like I said, the Sharks are entertaining to watch because I just like watching them. But more local team for me. But or somewhat local. But yeah, I with hockey, I've heard they're going to start in July and training camp. I think July 1st. But even then, I haven't heard exactly when in July, so I don't know if it's going to be the very last day of July, because they're kind of talking about that for basketball, July 31st. Don't know if hockey's going to do that on July 31st or if it'll be earlier or what. And I think I heard how the 30 teams are going to have 24 team playoff format or something instead of the normal 16, but I don't know exactly how that's going to work. I don't know if they're still going to be playing some sort of best of 5 or 7 or 3 or whatever series to start, or if it's going to be kind of like baseball where you have a few teams that are doing like a one game playoff to decide if they move on, or how they're going to do that. And same thing with basketball, if they do start up, I don't know if we're still going to have a best of 7 for every round and just simply forgo the regular season. And because even if you do forgo the regular season and go straight to the playoffs, with basketball, with how long of a hiatus they've been on, I still don't see how you can finish the season by the beginning of September unless you cut the playoffs some as well, meaning you don't have necessarily a best of 7 every round. Maybe you have a best of 5 or something. Or, maybe part of what they do is maybe a combination of that, and maybe you have less time between rounds. So maybe instead of, having it where you end the first round and the second round, depending on, how things go and the rounds and the teams and who's waiting for the next team or whatever. Maybe instead of having it where the first round ends and maybe you have, I don't know, just throwing numbers out there, but maybe you have 4 days before the second round starts now. Well, maybe instead you cut that to just 2 days or something and then do that again from the second to the third round and then third round of the finals. I don't know. But, yeah, this is my kind of my introduction video, and might make a few more videos today. I don't know how I'm going to do videos in terms of schedule. So, I don't know if I'll do videos on a certain day or, certain videos per week or how this will, go, but we'll see. But right now, in terms of videos, I had a few ideas going forward that you guys should stay tuned for. Some of those ideas I had that I think I'll do here pretty soon, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, is I think I'll do a Nintendo Switch video of like my top 5 games or so on the Nintendo Switch, because like I said, I've been pretty impressed with the Nintendo Switch so far, and what they've done, even though I feel like we're in a little bit of a drought. But I might do a video on that. I might also do, besides the top 5, I also might do something like, considering the Nintendo Switch is just over 3 years old, we're probably around the halfway point for the Nintendo Switch before we get, say, a Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever Nintendo's next console is going to be called. And I'm not talking about, some sort of like Pro mini upgrade or whatever, kind of like, PlayStation Pro, Xbox X, that kind of thing, but more the next gen console, whatever. I don't know what they'll call it when it'll come out, but yeah, we might be about halfway. So knowing that, I was thinking I might do like a video of kind of what I would like to see from the rest of this generation from Nintendo in terms of like what kind of games I'd like to see come out. Kind of a wish list, I guess, of what I'd like to see from Nintendo the rest of this generation. In terms of games that I'd say more part games that are announced, but also partly kind of wished of games that maybe haven't been announced, that either we may not have announced or that maybe are possible, or maybe in kind of in the middle where maybe it could happen but it might not because of how maybe one of the games is selling in the previous part of the franchise. For example, I'd like to see a Mario Kart 9, but Mario Kart 8 is still selling pretty well, so I don't know when or if that'll happen, or if we might actually go this generation with not having a completely new Mario Kart and maybe have to wait for a Switch 2 or something for Mario Kart 9. Not really sure, but that's just kind of an example. And then with so yeah, kind of a top 5, like I said, Nintendo, Switch, my personal top 5 Nintendo Switch games video, the video of what I'd kind of like to see from the rest of the Nintendo Switch gen. And then from the PlayStation side, because we finally got the official date for PlayStation 5 reveal, being June 4th, which is actually a day after my birthday, so it's kind of like a late birthday present for me. Woo! But I was kind of thinking I might do some sort of video on that in terms of my predictions. I would like to do kind of a reaction video to the Sony conference for PlayStation 5, but I'm going to be at work during that time since it's literally in the middle of the day. I might be able to watch part of it at lunch. Not really sure. Depending on if I get to watch part of it at lunch, what I might do is watch part of it at lunch, and then when I get home, basically just rewatch it, because even if I do watch it on my lunch, I'm gonna have to watch it on my phone, and I'd like to watch it more on like my TV or computer where I can see it better. But at the same time, I don't know if I want to wait several hours to have an idea of what's been announced. I haven't, especially because there's a few things that I think are very likely, and a few things I'm really looking forward to, hoping that are announced or whatever, and a few things that if I'm correct about or if are announced, then PlayStation 5 is something I'll get day one. I have a few of those kind of checklist things. There's a few things that if some of the stuff is not announced or whatever, I may decide to wait a little bit for PlayStation 5 when it comes out. But yeah, I like to do, like I said, streaming video, but I'll be at work, and so I can't really do that. And I don't know if I want to do kind of a reaction video to something when I'm actually not watching it for the first time. Unless I end up not watching it until I get home. But we'll just kind of see on that one. But the other big thing, like I said, is with PlayStation that I was going to do for a video is a prediction video, just of what I think will be announced during that conference from Sony. I think I'll do in terms of games and stuff that I expect, and maybe kind of give a probability on each of them type of thing. So just kind of a prediction video. So yeah, this is my first video. Went a little longer than I was hoping, but I'm sure it'll get better. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe, click the like button down below. Thank you.